The new Superman movie is basically Nazi Agitprop against Jews. He goes, I wish I was kidding, but it's literally a Groyper movie. It's like something out of Goebbels. By the way, Drew's an incredibly shitty writer. Look, very clearly represent Israel. Very clearly supposed to represent Gaza. Every paragraph has very clearly. Whenever you read very clearly, it means I have no evidence for this whatsoever. The thesis of this film is that America is dominated by Zog. That's what you think the theme is of the film. If you have any like Arab or Muslim looking person in your movie, you're engaged in blood libel. Then they have Superman arrested by ICE. It's a meme. Don't get mad. It's a meme. Hey folks, please like, comment, and subscribe. And make sure to check out my newsletter. Information is in the description. I'm going to talk about Superman the movie. I'm not going to spoil anything. It's not going to be like any spoilers. So don't worry. I'll be very conscious of the fact that some of you may not have seen the movie. And I'm going to talk a little bit about like the reaction to it and just about like themes that, again, won't reveal plot points or any plot twists or anything. So just be aware of that. You don't have to necessarily cover your ears unless you're that averse to hearing stuff about the movie. Because Drew Pavlou tweeted the following. And now I really want to talk to Drew Pavlou about this. Drew Pavlou tweets, quote, "The new Superman movie is basically Nazi Agitprop against Jews. As the film reaches its climax," I'm not going to reveal the plot points. Basically, he's claiming that there's an allusion to extermination of Jews in it. He goes, I wish I was kidding, but it's literally a Groyper movie. It's like something out of Goebbels. They literally present Zionists as an interdimensional cosmic threat. I want to just take a second here to address this. It is absolutely unhinged. It is completely unhinged for Drew Pavlou to tweet this, and everyone who's like examining this movie about a guy in tights like it's some kind of political propaganda any more than any other like superhero movie. It is so bizarre. Number one, let's take on like the actual like immigration side of it. People are like, wow, the movie has themes about, Superman not being like the other humans, but still being able to overcome it and them accepting him even though he's from another country, and they're trying to paint him as like an illegal immigrant. When, guys, I don't know what to tell you. He's an illegal immigrant. Okay? Canonically, Superman is an illegal alien. He arrives from planet Krypton, crashes into the United States without inspection and admission. He's not even human. The government starts looking for him, and two parents hide him, sequester him, and make up a backstory for him and pretend that he's their child. And he hides that secret for some period of time, canonically, right? So he literally is an illegal alien. The Superman story, the whole mythology is, even though he comes from this far off land, he learns from the, good people around him and to become like us. So anyone can be like us. And he's us at our greatest ideal, right? He arrives here from a different planet and he gets our values and he upholds them to the highest, right? At an almost unreachable standard. And he actually becomes a defender of the planet and the American way, although that was kind of added after. He becomes a defender of that, having arrived here and being embraced by the good people of the earth and of Smallville. That's always been a running theme of Superman. Superman has never been like a strong on borders, like a MAGA guy. Superman is kind. Superman is heroic. Superman wants to save people in distress. He wants to provide, even going so far as to sacrifice himself in many instances. Superman is not this you need to get out kind of person. I'm not saying he will never believe in borders or anything like that, but that's not what Superman represents. Superman comes to this planet. He learns to love and see value in the humans around him. And he also receives a lot of values from them. And then he becomes a protector. He becomes the protector of Metropolis and of the world. That's his story. It's fundamentally a pro-immigrant story. I don't think the movie is that heavy-handed at all with respect to that. And again, I want to just state that has been a theme of Superman the whole time. It would be like saying, wow, Batman. I can't believe like Batman's going on and on and on about like corruption or whatever and like doing the right thing, even when I don't know it's like going after Batman or Spider-Man for some theme that's definitely been in there the entire time. So that doesn't make any sense. And then there's another, because there's a kind of subplot about countries. I'm not going to get into the spoiler territory for Superman, but there's a subplot there. People are trying to liken it to Israel Palestine. This movie was probably written before October 7th. And there are always these like conflicts between the fake countries that they make up in all these superhero movies, right? Sokovia from Marvel, Wakanda, they always have these conflicts. And I think people are reading too much into it. To call that movie a Nazi movie is literally degenerate. Drew Pavlou in that respect is no worse than the most outrageous MAGA shills in that respect. For him to come out of that movie saying this is a Nazi movie, only a paid shill or a literal unhinged person would say that. And I think it betrays kind of a guilty conscience a little bit, I have to say. If you go into that movie and you're like, wow, this is a movie that's like imposing its politics on me and I don't like how it makes me feel, maybe that's a reflection of yourself, that you're not living up to Superman's ideals and what Superman as a kind person stands for. And maybe you're a little bit guilty about Israel Palestine. Just saying. I mean, when you see that from Drew Pavlou, it's pure propaganda, it's pure shillism, it's pure brain rot. And when I schedule that conversation with Drew, it'll be the first thing we talk about is we're going to force him to back down from that unhinged position, calling Superman a Nazi movie, calling it like Goebbels. Can you believe that? Superman is like in the movie trying to save everybody, trying to save the life of even things that other people like don't. He's so intent on saving, right? Because that's what he does. That's why I love this Superman. And also I like this, this rendition of Superman, the character Superman. Because he's like a good person trying to save people. That's what Superman does. And to turn that into something, like, it's just so silly. And it makes me think that there's a guilty conscience there. Also, the main actor is literally Jewish. Is David really Jewish? He's probably one of the bad ones, according to Drew. One of the collaborators. He's literally Jewish. David Cornswet is literally Jewish. He plays Superman. Goebbels movie, though. Oh, wait. He had a whole article about this. He wrote an article. All right. Now we have to review the article. Holy crap. Oh, wait. This has spoilers. All right. So this is what I'm going to do. For the next... I'm going to actually read this. I can't not read this. I'm sorry. This is too unhinged. There will be a spoiler warning in the sense that I'm giving you a spoiler warning right now. Step out if you've not seen the movie or if you don't care, or if you do care, right? If you care about the spoilers, you'll know you can come back, right? You can unmute it once I'm off of Drew Pavlou's article and once I'm back on Rob Noor. When you see Rob Noor's face, you can come back. Okay. This is insane that he writes this. The new Superman movie is basically Nazi agitprop against Jews. Congrats to Nick Fuentes for his screenwriting debut. Unhinged. Absolutely unhinged. I just finished watching the new Superman movie and I was legitimately stunned by just how anti-Semitic it is. I went into the film with low expectations because I saw various mentally ill leftist figures on social media crow about the film as a total cultural war victory against Israel, America, and the West. So he's going into this movie with an expectation that it's bad because of leftists that he's reading on Twitter. Various mentally ill leftist figures. And he sees this film as a cultural war victory against America. Against America? Now let's see his actual argumentation here. Sean King wrote on Substack that, quote, outside of literally calling the two nations Israel and Palestine, it couldn't be any clearer. Again, I want to stress, this movie was written before October 7th. Hassan Piker called it 2 hours and 10 minutes of Israel. They're just wrong about that. That's them reading into it, right? So the conclusion there might be, okay, they're reading too much into it. They're reading the message as being anti-Israel, which, by the way, a reasonable person could interpret it that way because what Israel's doing is fucking horrible and bad. And Superman doesn't stand for it. So a reasonable person could watch Superman and be like, well, Superman wants to save people. And so maybe the country that's doing a genocidal slaughter isn't like something that Superman would stand for. But I don't think that doesn't make the movie about Israel Palestine any more than like any movie about any good like people, right? It's not about it. It's just people taking the message of the movie of being like, let's save people, let's be like good people generally, let's like try to love each other, and turning it into political messaging. And even if you don't accept that framing. If you call these people mentally ill, why would you accept their framing? Like, why would you accept the framing of the mentally ill leftist figures? So I bought a ticket with all of this in mind and took a notepad to the screening so that I could write down my observations. These are detailed below. Oh my God. Wait, so because the guy has the hair, he's claiming that James Gunn was making a comparison to David Ben-Gurion, to this president guy. First of all, their hair is different. You think he was talking about David Ben-Gurion? Crazy. The primary villain in the new Superman film is Vasil Gurkos. That's not true. Hey, Pavlou, the primary villain in the new Superman is called Lex Luthor. What are you talking about? Lex Luthor and Ultraman and the Engineer. Vasil Gurkos is some like tier 3 like puppet of Lex Luthor. Hold on, let him cook. Let him cook. That's not the primary villain. The primary villain is Lex Luthor. Did you not watch the movie? Or did you go into it like looking for this shit? Vasil Gurkos, the leader of the fictional country of Moravia, which is very clearly supposed to represent Israel. Why? That's not clear to me at all. Wait, is it the fact that Vasil Gurkos is invading another country without... is that what is making this obviously clearly meant to represent Israel? So anytime we have a country that is engaged in an invasion of another country, it's meant to represent Israel. He's very much Vasil Gurkos. It's almost like a Slavic country. He has kind of a Slavic accent. It doesn't make any sense. How do you know it's supposed to represent Israel? Actually, Vasil Gurkos happens to look almost exactly like David Ben-Gurion. They don't look exactly the same. They sound different. They move different. This is crazy. Bravia first appeared in the issue of Superman from 1939. Yeah, like this is not what it's trying to do. You need some proof. He also happens to have the exact same accent as Benjamin Netanyahu. Not true. He does not at all have the same accent as Benjamin Netanyahu. It's so different than Bibi Netanyahu. That's crazy. That's so crazy. He's accent deaf. He's completely accent deaf. We first see him shrieking on American television, demanding American support for Moravia, Israel. For Moravia, Israel. Again, he's provided zero support that the country of Moravia is meant to represent Israel, right? Nothing. He just says it's very clearly supposed to represent Israel. He doesn't give any reason. Just because Vasil Gurkos happens to look like Ben-Gurion, where, again, I don't think he looks like Ben-Gurion, and because he sounds like Bibi Netanyahu, no. He doesn't sound like Bibi Netanyahu. He tells that the streets must be flooded with the blood of every Jarhanpuran Palestinian. He does not say this. This is not a quote. Palestine, like, this is not a quote. He tells us that, like, this is, now I know he's trying to be cute here, but you should really not put in a fake quote. You should, like, because this is not scare quotes. Scare quotes is something else where, like, you could do something in scare quotes. This is not scare quotes. This is like a fake quote. This is not said. And also, he doesn't say this initially. Initially, he's talking about, well, this is to protect the Jarhanpurans, right? He doesn't say this blood part until they actually do the invasion. And again, so this is a fake quote. Gurkos, Netanyahu, and Moravia, Israel want to invade the neighboring country of Jarhanpur, which is very clearly supposed to represent Gaza. Why? Why is this very clearly supposed to represent Gaza? I'll tell you some differences. The Jarhanpurians are a separate recognized country. They're not a constructively occupied country by Israel. There's clear borders that they're going to try to break up, right? I guess in that respect, the fact that they're talking about annexing it, I guess. But other people have annexed before in history, like Saddam Hussein annexed, Russia annexed, right? That's a Slavic country that annexed. And so I just don't understand why this is supposed to represent Gaza. What about it is supposed to represent Gaza? The fact that they're kind of outmatched, but again, that happens in history apart from Israel-Palestine. Nothing about the setup here is directly tying to Israel-Palestine. This is crazy. We are told in the film that Superman previously showed up during a previous bout of fighting between Moravia, Israel, and Gaza, Jarhanpur. This is crazy. To intervene on the side of the Palestinians, and that this drew the ire of the American and Israeli governments. I don't know what to say. This is playing on a theme that's as old as dirt in superhero movies, which is if you just think about saving people, and you don't think about, like, well, should you save people? Who elected you? Like, these are things that it's a great scene where Lois Lane is challenging him and talking about, like, and actually pushing back on the notion that you should just like save no matter what and not really think it through. So it's a really awesome scene, and it's not at all kind of, it's not presented as this like clear-cut answer. The movie doesn't super explore that theme that much more than that, but it presents it. And it's like a kind of, you're not really left with the overwhelming notion that, okay, Superman should just be like reckless about everything he does. In the end, ultimately they do save, but that's when you discover that there's like a literal evil plan, and that Superman, it's not actually Superman who saves. And Superman needs to like call on his friends. Indeed, Superman tells his love interest Lois Lane that he flew to the Netanyahu character. So wild, so wild. So he has not, is this the Netanyahu character or the Ben-Gurion character? It actually makes no sense, right? Because David Ben-Gurion, he does not represent the kind of government that like Bibi Netanyahu represents. They come from different political orientations and foundations. On the one hand, you have the more secular socialist Zionists, and then you have this like kind of reform Zionism, this kind of this new Likud party that, you know, they're not. He's not clear on, or Drew, I think, is not clear here on the comparison. He's meant to look like Ben-Gurion, but he's supposed to represent Netanyahu. Okay. Again, the movie was written before October 7th. He flew him out to the desert where he tortured him with a cactus to stop threatening the Palestinians, which I suppose represents a nice power fantasy for lefties. Holy crap. So the film basically centers on Netanyahu's attempt at getting revenge. No, it doesn't. That's kind of like a B plot. The movie centers on like the conflict between Lex Luthor and Superman. The movie's about Superman. It doesn't really spend that much time. Actually, you could critique them for not spending that much time building up the Barovia conflict. It's not at all about this. An Israeli-American and military-industrial complex plot to take out Superman and incapacitate him so the Barovia Israel can have a free hand to reinvade Gaza, Jarhanpur, and genocide the Palestinians. This is such a self report. Now, we are told in the film that Barovia and Jahanpur are in Eastern Europe, but when we see footage of evil Baravian troops massing on the border with Jahanpur, it is very clearly a desert setting. Is he about to do like a racist meme? The civilians of Jahanpur are very clearly Arab Muslims, with the women all wearing hijabs. They hold sticks and stones against the might of the Baravian forces, who are depicted as an all-white colonial force. We later see a map of Jahanpur in the film, and the outlines of the state of Jahanpur look very similar to Gaza. No, they don't. They really don't. It's like a larger country, and it's so big that they're going to split it in half and have Lex Luthor take over another half of it. This is so insane. Wait, so this is the picture. This is the picture of the Jahanpurans, and it's like, this is very clearly Gaza. And by the way, self-report that, oh, because they're in hijab, they must be Gazans or Palestinians. Also, this woman is not in a hijab. Also, not everyone in Gaza wears a hijab. They're more lenient on that in Palestine. Crazy shit. This guy looks pretty white. And also, by the way, there are white people who are Palestinians. They look very white. This looks like Gaza. Look, right? So this is what looks like the borders of Gaza. Jarhanpur, right? Very clearly demarked borders that's so big that they're splitting it in half, right? Baravia is under it. How does this look like Gaza? Explain that to me, right? This is the plan to split up Luthoria and New Baravia. How does this look like the map of Gaza? Explain it to me. Actually insane. My guess, for what it's worth, is that the script probably originally called for Baravia to represent Russia, with Baravia's leader representing Vladimir Putin. How can you say that, Drew Pavlou? He doesn't look like Putin. How can this represent Putin if he doesn't look like him? We see hints of this previous incarnation of the film buried beneath the final cut. For example, Gurko speaks a Slavic language, and when he's finally killed in the film's triumphant final moments, we see him drop from a great height over a very clearly Slavic capital that looks like Moscow, complete with the onion domes of Russian Orthodoxy architecture. So there are indeed some half-arsed references to Eastern Europe for plausible deniability, even though the references very clearly don't make sense within the film's universe. By the way, Drew's an incredibly shitty writer, and whenever he reads very clearly, whenever you say clearly, right? Look, very clearly represent Israel, very clearly supposed to represent Gaza. Every paragraph has very clearly. Whenever you read very clearly, it means I have no evidence for this whatsoever. That's what very clearly means. The overall narrative of the film is so clearly related to the Israel-Palestine conflict that it just doesn't feel that way at all. right? Something that would make it more related to the Israel-Palestine conflict is that you have evidence of the Jarnporians like doing some kind of terrorist acts or something, and that some reference. Oh, Baravia claims that Jarnpor, whatever, there was some kind of attack, and they're complicated and making it seem like October 7th. Again, this was written before October 7th. That Baravia, has this kind of oversight control over the borders of Jarhanpur. Again, look at all the borders that Jarhanpur has with other fake countries. It's not just Baravia. They're kind of similar in size. It's not at all. They don't play in the metrics of the underlying fundamentals of the conflict at all. The only, I guess, similarity is like one side is outmatched by another and the other side's invading. It's so clearly related, so clearly related to the Israel-Palestine conflict that these references just end up feeling like a pentimento. Quote, the presence or emergence of earlier images, forms, or strokes that have been changed and painted over by an artist. Again, no substantiation here. He's just speculating based on nothing that, they set it up to be an Eastern European country and then very quickly change it with no evidence. This is because the film spends so much time trying to present Baravia Israel as parasitically lording over the United States. That is like objectively false. The film goes out of its way that Lex Luthor is behind it all, that this guy Gurkos is a pawn of Lex Luthor. It is not at all meant to imply that Baravia is lording over the United States. That is like not even 1% of the film's implication. The whole thing is that Lex Luthor is behind it all. Lex Luthor is using this conflict as he even says it, right? He even says it. I'm using this conflict to have an excuse to kill Superman, to try to kill Superman, to end Superman. It is exactly the opposite. Lex is the puppet master, not Baravia. The movie doesn't even spend that much time talking about Baravia. That's actually one of the shortcomings, I think, is it kind of mentions Baravia in a couple sentences at the start, and then you have a couple of the clips of it, but they don't really spend a lot of time fleshing out Baravia. Pisco is very clearly very related to Drew because they're very clearly have the same voice, clearly the same person. It just really wasn't spending time on Baravia that much at all, to the extent that like they do spend time talking about it. Baravia is very much not in the driver's seat. It's Lex Luthor behind everything else. Lex Luthor like beats the shit out of using his strategies, right? He's outsmarting Superman at various different points in time. And it's his puppet strings. He's controlling everything. It's not the Baravian guy who's kind of like this awkward guy who's kind of like bumbling, fumbling guy. It's not him. For example, right? Like they do like a false flag at one of the things is like a false flag, and it's all Lex's plan, right? Lex's master strategy. He made this false flag, not for the interest of Baravia. It's for Lex. This is not a state hostile to America like Putin's Russia, but instead an ally that corrupts and defiles America from within. No, right? Like Baravia is not stated to be a close ally, or actually I think they technically are an ally to America or something. Anyway, but like that's not important, right? Like they're not in the driver's seats. You don't see Baravian officials in the government like, oh yes, and you must help Baravia. Like you don't see that. You see Lex Luthor in these government meetings convincing American officials that Superman's like a threat. Why is Superman a threat, right? Like, think about it. He missed the whole anti-immigrant kind of like playing Superman against. The whole thing is, right, like America's threatened from within by the immigrant, by the alien, by Superman. And that's why there's this whole thing about the message from Krypton. So the Baravians don't even, that's not even how Lex is able to get Superman to submit himself to like justice or whatever. It's other stuff. Like, so the Baravians are not the ones who are doing this whole shit. It's all Lex Luthor. And like, they don't even spend that much time on Baravia. Their behavior in the film mirrors all the most vicious anti-Semitic caricatures and conspiracy theories about the Israeli-American alliance. So untrue. Baravia Israel basically dominates and lords over America, wantonly slaughtering random American civilians, and blowing up New York City skyscrapers with constant false flag terrorist attacks. No. Lex Luthor, first of all, there's a false flag planned by Lex Luthor, and people blame Superman for it. Hey, Superman, why'd you have to go to Baravia? And like, why'd you do this? And people start blaming Superman a little bit and turning on Superman, right? His popularity declines because people blame Superman. They don't like blame as much Baravia. That's like the one of the false flag stuff. And also, again, like it's Lex who's destroying these skyscrapers, and but Baravia is not behind that. It's all Lex. It's all part of Lex machinations. Various New York City skyscrapers blown up by Israel by Israel. This is all Lex's like machine, his pocket dimension machine. This is not at all Baravia doing this. Insanity, complete insanity. At like a Superman. So let me get this straight. Lex Luthor does some shit that puts Metropolis at risk, and Superman needs to like stop buildings from falling down. That's never happened in Superman. Superman doesn't like go and protect planes from buildings and protect planes out of the sky. Superman doesn't stop buildings that are collapsing and save everyone inside them. Lex Luthor doesn't threaten Metropolis ever with like destruction of buildings and sacrifice people needlessly. That never happens before. This clearly must be some kind of 9/11 illusion. Insanity. Actual self-report. The thesis of this film is that America is dominated by Zog. That's what you think the theme is of the film. There is a hidden cabal of crackling Jews who run the government and control the country through military-industrial complex, and a corrupt network of media oligarchs who propagandize and brainwash the American population into submission to brave Israel. That's not in there either, right? Like the media turns on Superman a little bit, but they also turn on Lex near the end of it. The media is portrayed as sensationalist for sure, right? They're portrayed as sensationalist, but they're not portrayed as just mere. And they even say like, no one likes Lex at the end, like Lex. I actually think that's like one of the. I think Lex sometimes comes across as a little too maniacal. Sometimes I think that he should be a little bit more suave. But I think Nick Holt does a good job. That's just like one little nitpick I have. But this is not even true. The media like apologizes to Superman. They're not like run by a bunch of cackling Jews. And it is not enough for the film that Baravia Israel simply lords over the Americans. The Baravian Israeli government actually operates Zog across multiple different dimensions. Guys, Baravia isn't operating the pocket dimensions. This is just a straight up lie, right? Lex Luthor is operating the pocket dimension. It's not Baravia. They operate pocket dimensions where they hold and torture their enemies. Again, not Baravia's enemies. Lex Luthor's enemies, right? Like they're literally saying like Lex Luthor is putting his former girlfriends who are like talking shit in the prisons. These aren't prisons for Baravia's enemies. They're prisons for Lex's enemies and the people who can like oppose Lex, because Lex is like the evil genius who's invented all of this shit, not Baravia. It makes zero sense. Why would Baravia imprison Lex's ex-girlfriends? The pocket dimensions create black holes that threaten the stability of the entire cosmos and indeed the very space-time continuum. I don't know what they say about the space-time continuum. I think they just said this is just him going like he's just confabulating now. I don't think that they've ever mentioned that it threatens the space-time continuum. It threatens to like destroy the Earth, but I don't think it threatens the very space-time continuum. So the film portrays Zog. No, it portrays Lex as not a supernatural force, but that he's operating with powers that he can't fully control and that are dangerous, and that he's willing to be reckless for his own ends, for his own hubris. As the film reaches its climax, Lex Luthor and Zog are willing to legitimately exterminate humanity and the entire universe with a black hole purely so as to stop Superman from resisting the Baravian Israeli invasion of Burhanpur, Gaza. No, it's to draw out Superman, to kill Superman. They even make a point of this in the movie. They're like, the Baravia thing is just an excuse. I don't really care about Baravia. They even show that like Lex is supplying weapons to Baravia at a steep discount. He doesn't give a about Baravia taking control over that part of Baravia. That's just like a side deal. They literally go out of their way to say that the Baravia stuff is a side deal for Lex, and that what he really cares about is killing Superman. That they literally make that point in the movie. It's not about resisting the Baravian invasion that much for Lex. That's a side thing for Lex. This is where the film devolves into frankly Goebbels tier racism, where the Yehudi Jews, Zionists, threaten the entire universe as a kind of interdimensional supernatural pestilence. It's not the entire universe, it's just the Earth. I suppose that it is probably relevant here that the director James Gunn once joked about Jews and ovens. Guys, this is 2009, I was being serious and not a joke. It's a Sabbath, and Jews aren't allowed to open the oven on the Sabbath, so I did them a favor. I don't know what this means or what the context is. I know that I've been to I've been to one of these dinners, and there's a lot of technology that isn't allowed to be used. I don't know what this is a reference to. I don't know the context. So this is the basic layout of the film. The basic foundation of the universe the writers constructed. Within this layout, we find many outright examples of cartoonish, clownish, anti-Semitism, and blood libel. Where's the blood libel? Where's the anti-Semitism? The very first scene, for example, depicts a Baravian Israeli supervillain. This is not a Baravian. This is later. This is Ultraman. It's literally not Baravian, blowing up skyscrapers in Manhattan. Throughout the and again, this is just a distraction to get to Superman, not for Baravia. Throughout the film, the Baravian Israelis just constantly blow up and incinerate dozens of towering sky. No, Lex does this, right? Lex unleashes the kaiju. That's not Baravia. No one says this is the Baravian kaiju. It's not Baravian's minions who do this. It's Lex's minions who unleash the kaiju. The what? Oh no. The kai what? A very clear. Okay, how many times do you think he said very clear or clear in this entire thing? We're going to do a control F in a second. A very clear wink and nod to anti-Semitic conspiracy theories depicting the Jews as the real perpetrators of the September 11th attacks. Unhinged. The hammer of Baravia destroys some concrete and windows. He doesn't even destroy any. Yeah. Also, I don't think he actually destroys this stuff. That like he doesn't actually attack the city that much, punishing Superman for interfering in their affairs. And they even say like Superman's popularity is going down every damn time. And the blood libel, how is this blood libel, by the way? I understand like blood libel to be something different. The blood libel does not stop there. At one point, the evil stand-in for Ben-Gurion Netanyahu abducts a random Arab streetcar vendor named Malik from the streets of New York City. Again, Lex Luthor does this and has Luthor execute him as a punishment for giving Superman some halal. Okay, so now he's literally, this is a meme. It's a troll. I'm the joke. This is a joke against me. They don't execute him as a punishment for giving Superman halal. It's a meme. It's a meme. I think Malik is actually the very first human character we are introduced to in the film. No. The engineer, I think, comes first, even though she's been augmented. She says that she was a human. We were introduced to in the film depicting helping a battered and severely injured Superman up from the crater. He tells Superman, I gave you free falafel. What a nice man, we think. These are the people who are calling Mamdani an anti-Semite, by the way. He thinks this is anti-Semitic. If you have any like Arab or Muslim looking person in your movie, you're engaged in blood libel. Ultimately, the film goes to these lengths to humanize him. And this is actually racist from Drew, right? So that Lex Luthor can viciously shoot him in the head for no reason, while the evil stand-in for Ben-Gurion Netanyahu cackles with glee and Superman cries, no! Okay, I mean, I don't know. This is such a reach. I mean, the subtlety of it all is just genius. The subtlety of it all? Goebbels, very famous for his subtlety, right? The Goebbels Nazi, very obvious Nazi propaganda, also very subtle. The Nazi filmmaker is very known for their subtlety. I mean, the subtlety of it is all genius. They literally just pick up a random Arab street or halal vendor off the street and then shoot him in the head and laugh. The message is, Israel is evil. The whites, Jews hate Arabs. Only a toddler could not read this subliminal message or hear this dog whistle. Okay, is it subtle or is it very obvious? So it's a very obvious, subtle, subliminal message. Over and over, we are bombarded with the message that Baravia, Israel, and the Zog America KKK military industrial complex are evil. That's not even true, right? Like the people who are the most like down to earth are Superman's parents, Clark Kent's parents, the Kents, and they're played really super redneck. It is not at all America bad message. Superman is trying to like save America, protect America. He tries to save and protect Metropolis. There are good people in Metropolis, right? And by the way, another point about the media here, right? Like the media is not depicted as just in the hands of Baravia at all. You have the Daily Planet, right? The most famous news organization in the whole Superman mythology, right? The Daily Planet is actively going to undermine the Baravian / Lex Luthor alliance, right? Where you have Lois Lane and the heads of the Daily Planet who are like in good faith seeking out the truth to undermine what Lex Luthor is doing. So that's just another point against this whole like Zog controlled media or whatever. We watch the Secretary of Defense. It's not the Secretary of Defense. It's like some general so he's not even paying attention to the movie. Plot with Lex Luthor to kill Superman for Israel. No, he totally missed this, right? They're not killing him for Israel. They're killing him because there was a message from Krypton that basically, when they decoded it, supposedly it said Superman, go control the whole world and establish a harem and pass on your seed. That was like part of the message that Superman never received, and they later decoded it, and then they released that message. And so they're not doing this for Baravia. In fact, before they get that message, they're totally unwilling to go after Superman. It's only once they have the message from Krypton, and there's some evidence perhaps that he was sent here to rule over the humans, that ultimately we have the American government willing to allow Lex Luthor to arrest him. But it's not for Baravia. It's for the threat to all of humanity. I think it's maybe arguably even something good, right? In terms of the American government is unwilling until the whole world is threatened or something. Now, I don't think the American government are played as super evil. They're not played as super good, but they're played as more kind of unwilling initially to go with Lex's plans, but then ultimately just acquiescing to the reality that metahumans are going to be more of a role in what's going on. And a little bit they're wary of the fact that they're losing power, not that Baravia is in control of everything and we need to let them invade their other country. They don't even give a shit about it. We are pressed over and over again with the message that these ties are corrupt and sealed in blood. No. For example, reporters tell us in the film that Baravia has purchased $80 billion in arms from Luthor Corp, and that Luthor Corp in turn lobbies for Baravia. But that's shown to be not the true relationship. Lex Luthor doesn't really care about this money. They literally say this, that he doesn't care about this money, right? We are told that they only paid $1.5 billion and Luthor promising Luthor half of the Gaza in return for the rest. And they literally say this is a side deal. Why does he need a desert? One character asks. Because it has great resource deposits. Comes the reply. A direct mirror of infantile leftist material analysis claims that Israel and America are only in Gaza for the strip's plentiful sand deposits or something. What? It's revealed he's taken this at a loss, and this is just a side deal, and he actually doesn't care about it, right? Why does he need a desert? He doesn't really need it. It's just a side deal. That's a good question, and it's not really, because this isn't really what's motivating him. So it's actually this is not true, right? This is even if this were some kind of leftist materialist analysis, it's undercut in the movie because that's not actually what's motivating him. What's motivating him are very human things, not material things, but ego and a desire, a fear, right? A fear of the unknown. He's I'm afraid. It's not a materialist analysis. Luthor actually details his evil Zog plans. No, very extensively for Superman. And by extension, the viewer. He boasts of his interdimensional bot farms where literal monkeys work on treadmills to smear Superman with evil Hasbro propaganda. Okay, this part actually happened, but it's not Hasbro. It's not. Yes, he does have interdimensional bot farms with literal monkeys working to do this shit, but it's not for the purposes that he's saying here. So let's just be real. As Sean King correctly notes in his mentally ill Substack post about the movie, so he's making common cause with Sean King and Hassan in the sense that he's basically agreeing with their characterization of the movie. Their cartoonishly evil propaganda smears against Superman are supposed to mirror contemporary right-wing racist Islamophobic rhetoric today. Ben Gurion Netanyahu accuses Superman of wanting to start a harem of women to outbreed Americans and subjugate them. Who knows how large his harem is already? Yeah, this is based on the message sent on Krypton, and this is based on what Lex wants to do. Lex Luthor accuses Superman of grooming us to secretly take over America. The allusion to an Oriental-style harem and the focus on grooming and outbreeding is supposed to present a character of anybody critical of Islamic extremism in Europe? No. Prove that. No. The whole point of this, right, is the message is true. And some people didn't like this, that they actually were sending him over. Superman didn't get this message, part of the message. He only got the first part of the message, which was go over to this planet, show them the way, that kind of stuff, all the good stuff. And the second half was you need to rebuild Krypton bloodline, and you need to be fruitful and multiply. The humans are dumb, but the whole point is he's initially in denial, but the message is actually true, right? It is a true message, and the whole point is just because someone has their preordained destiny doesn't mean that you are meant to fulfill that. And the Kents literally spell this out and say it's not for parents to decide what children do. We are supposed to give you the tools so that you can come to your own decisions and you can come to your own conclusions. The threat of the harem stuff, that stuff was real, right? You were meant to, and the whole point of that is he's not doomed to that kind of lifestyle or whatever. He's not doomed to do that forever. Not to be like some critique of anyone critical of Islamic extremism. That's such a stretch. I mean, the reference to grooming is extremely on the nose in light of the incendiary debate over grooming gangs in Britain. This guy has issues. Huge, humongous issues. We watch as he is dehumanized. Superman is not a man. He is an alien, Luthor pronounces. I've sacrificed my own humanity to help get rid of it. Their evil is just blatantly cartoonish. It's a fucking superhero movie. Yeah. The message is they're dehumanizing Superman. He's not initially human, but he's one of us. That sometimes, right, like people who come from other places live up to our ideals better than the people who were initially, like your birth doesn't determine who you are as a person. It's like a classic trope in these kinds of movies. I mean, just compare this buffoonery to the fascinating villains of the Nolan Batman series. Heath Ledger's Joker, Tom Hardy's Bane. These were genuinely fascinating characters with fascinating backstories and tortured motivations. Oh my God. All right, I love Dark Knight movies. I love Batman. Everyone knows that, but are you serious? Heath Ledger's Joker is the embodiment of chaos. He has no backstory. His whole thing is he doesn't have a backstory. He lies about the backstory and he's just an agent of chaos. I love those movies. I love the Nolan movies. But come on. Tortured motivations? What's Bane's tortured motivation? Holy this guy is 2 IQ. 1 IQ. What matters is our plan. Like, Bane is cartoon. These are cartoonishly evil characters, but also they're cartoons in comic books. Remember Joker's explanation of his scars? The scar thing totally went over his head. It totally went over his head. Heath Ledger's Joker offers 2 completely contradictory stories. One related to an abusive father, a drinker, and a fiend who mutilates his own child, another relating to a beautiful wife who gambles and gets in deep with the sharks. They carve her face and drive him to insanity. Decades have passed since Heath Ledger's Joker. People are still fascinated by him. They still debate his motivations and the source of his downfall into insanity and evil. Compare this to the cartoon retarded clowns of the new superhero film. What are their motivations? So we're white and we're white colonizers and we hate brown people and Muslims and we're evil. Yeah. So you didn't watch the movie. You don't exactly have to be a detective for sake. It's just 12-year-old shit. This is all supposed to present a caricature of Israeli Hasbara and thereby mock anyone in the real world who's critical of Hamas or Islamic extremism more generally. The film basically seems to revel in ramming this leftist messaging down our throats. Actual shitpost. Yeah, true. Luthor attacks Superman's Fortress of Solitude in an assault that's basically inverts October 7th. So now he is saying that this is October 7th. This movie that was written before October 7th is basically inverting October 7th. They behead and decapitate Superman's friendly robots and try to murder they don't try to murder his dog. They try to abduct his dog. They don't try to murder his dog. So anytime that someone friendly is being destroyed, it's an inversion of October 7th, which inverts the actual history of October 7th, where Hamas fighters film themselves executing family pets and attempting to behead Thai migrant workers while screaming Yahud, Yahud, Yahud. Then they have Superman arrested by ICE. It's a meme. It's a meme. Don't get mad. It's a meme. Arrested by ICE on false grounds and thrown into a heavily militarized private prison that looks a lot like El Salvador's Sikot. No, it doesn't. It doesn't look like Sikot. It's an interdimensional prison. Everyone has their own individualized cell with like windows. Doesn't it all look like Sikot? It's in a pocket dimension. We are told that governments around the world farm out their political prisoners to this black site. A media report helpfully clarifies for us viewers that the government can only do this because Superman was stripped of all legal and human rights by a Supreme Court decision that denied human rights to illegal aliens. Wow, it is just like real life. He denounces Israel's attempt at regime change, mocks their claims of bringing freedom to the Burhan Purins. Is this a spell mistake or am I missing a joke? He's literally not bringing freedom to them. Jarhanpur is not perfect, but that doesn't give Baravia the right to invade. Baravia is not well-intentioned. They aren't freeing the Jarhanpurins. Why do we need to base Superman off Noam Chomsky? Oh, right. Noam Chomsky, who's very in favor of unilateralism by superheroes to come in and save the day. Noam Chomsky, who's very in favor of someone just to come in and save the day like Superman. Insane. I don't know. All art and creative endeavor must be subordinated to the omni cause for some unclear reason. Superman ultimately breaks out of Sikot in the film. The final boss fight takes place inside a baseball stadium, an implicit stand for American identity against the insidious forces of the Yehudi. It's just A baseball stadium, my guy. They also go to other places. Imagine, so he's saying, oh yes, James Gunn is this, we shall have it in the baseball field so that people know that the Jews are trying to, I don't know, that we must, what is this implicit stand? I don't understand actually what this point is. That we need to destroy American identity? Like you said, this was anti-American. Or are they trying to signal that American identity is associated with defense against Moravia? Luther and the American military industrial complex works in conjunction with the Yehud to try and defeat Superman inside this baseball stadium by covering him with a scary black goo substance that seeps over his blue Aryan eyes and steals them away from him. The guy is a Jew. The actor is Jewish. His blue Aryan eyes. Perhaps director James Gunn was inspired by Zara's Blue Eyes, the Iranian state television which centers on a Jewish plot to steal the eyes of Palestinian children in the West Bank. Honestly, thank you, James, for giving voice to the oppressed people of the global South and letting the subaltern speak. We all know that the perfidious Yehudi are always trying to steal the blue eyes of their racial superiors, and it is important we emphasize this to the world in top-tier Hollywood AAA production. The movie ends with Netanyahu killed and Luther arrested and paraded before television cameras as the agent of Zog, a traitor, a foreign agent. Leftist power fantasies fulfilled. We see a figure on the television declare that the one thing both liberals and conservatives can agree on is that Lex Luthor is the devil. Tucker, DSA, Red-Brown alliance against Israel complete. So now we're like aligning ourselves with Tucker. That's what James Gunn is doing. Gunn includes like one single throwaway line near the end of the film to try and refute allegations that he basically made a Groyper movie. Lex Luthor, the stand-in for the American military-industrial complex, says, I'm not controlled by Israel. I actually made the conflict to distract everyone. But again, this doesn't make sense against the backdrop of the entire film, which constantly portrays him as slaves to the Yehudi. It's literally the opposite. The entire film shows him in control of everything. And constantly the film is like questioning why this would happen, where the ultimate reason given is to stop Superman. I guess I should conclude by noting that Superman character is played by a Jewish guy, but who really cares? Considering the entire movie is basically a Groyper fantasy about Zog and the interdimensional Zionist threat. Seriously, what a psychotic clown show. Don't people want to be treated like adults? Who actually wants this slop? All right, I'm going to be very rude to Drew in my tweet now. Either this is a master troll or at Drew Pavlou is 2 IQ. We need to discuss this, Drew. I don't know what to say about this. I mean, it's super nuts, this whole thing.